5 ghost ships. One $500 million literal combat ship.
As you know, the administration is saying that these strikes in the Caribbean on these boats and the military presence, which is really tremendous that we're seeing there, is all about drugs. I think you and I both know that it's also about China. At a 16th drug smuggling boat off the coast of South America, killing 2 narco-terrorists. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to brief top Republican and Democrat lawmakers on the strikes today, after Democrats claimed that they were being left out in the dark. And not just China's contribution to the drug problem that we have coming through our country in the form of fentanyl, but also their presence in the Western Hemisphere. Tell me your thoughts on what Trump is doing.
If the title grabbed you, you're in the right place. This is a dramatized, doctrine-driven breakdown of how an LCS could dismantle a $30 billion narcotics fleet in minutes. We'll map the chain. P-8 Poseidon spots, MQ-9 confirms, USS Freedom surges, Seahawk strike, AK-103s and RPGs on deck versus sensors, speed, and naval gunfire. The question isn't, could it happen, it's how the playbook reads when it does.
Well, Rachel, look, I think the main security risk to America is that the Trump administration has hinted that they have proof that some countries across the Western Hemisphere are not only impotent against cartel, and it cannot be ignored. I think what Marco Rubio is going to deliver today is going to be a sober assessment of the growing threat to Americans, and that there needs to be direct action continued, or even indifferent to the violence endured by many of the innocent victims, their own citizens, mind you. But politicians in power are complicit with the cartels. And that poses a grave risk to American safety and security.
Stay to see the exact target validation steps and the shot sequence that ends 5 ghost ships without lighting the whole sea on fire. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. 5 radar ghosts slide along a crowded lane, tankers to starboard, cruise traffic over the horizon, coast guards on both nets. You need proof without lighting a diplomatic fuse. What would you do? The detection chain starts cold and clinical.
Yeah, here's Hakeem Jeffries accusing the Trump administration of not justifying these strikes. Listen.
The Pentagon, the Trump administration, so-called Secretary of Defense, all those folks who are part of the national security apparatus,
A P-8 Poseidon rides a racetrack above the haze and flags wakes that don't match sea state. Too clean, too linear, like blades cut with a ruler. Automatic identification system returns are absent or stale, but the wakes show steady throttle and tight station keeping. Infrared pulls the next thread, heat plumes shaped like compact generators, not trawl engines, with bursts that suggest chemical heating, not cooking gear. The Poseidon angles its radar to low graze to catch the sea clutter and the faint metal ribs that mark altered hulls. The clock starts, but then the camouflage hits your headset. One vessel raises a relief organization pennant. Another stacks plastic totes with tarps and white spray paint stencils that read water. Radio IDs hop every few minutes, calling fake distress relays, trying to force a humanitarian corridor. The deception sits just close enough to plausible to slow a trigger finger. You can't board 5 hulls, mid-lane, on a hunch. You need layers. Meanwhile, ISR stacks like shingles. The P-8 keeps the wide scan, arcs its orbit, and hands a grid to an MQ-9. The drone drops to medium altitude and resolves deck detail you never get from a blip. Blue drums lashed in triples, vent stacks with fresh weld seams. Improvised fume scrubbers, metal tubes and hoses running toward a covered bay. That rig speaks to mobile processing, solvents, precursors, and heat management, the ugly plumbing of a floating lab. The drone tags the fittings, counts the drums, watches crew movement. Men move in pairs, carry long cases, keep rifles under tarps when helicopters pass. The pattern holds. Gray shipping lives in this fog. Forged flags and borrowed call signs let dirty hulls blend in with relief convoys and tramp freighters. AIS can be spoofed, delayed, or flipped off entirely. The tactic buys time and forces lawmen to meet a higher bar. Interdiction doctrine answers with discipline. establish identity with matched hull form, unique damage or rust marks, consistent course histories, and corroborating thermal or radar hits, then escalate with radio hail, non-maneuvering proofs, and only then disabling force. Positive ID isn't a box to tick. It's the guardrail that keeps a gunfight off the evening news. Threat mapping tightens the noose. Comms intercepts and drone optics converge. About 70 armed men spread across the quintet, AK-103 pattern rifles slung at low ready. Tube launchers appear in the open twice, size and shape consistent with RPGs, rails show cutouts with sandbags, ad hoc firing points aimed at low birds and small boats. A crewman drags a crate to the bow and fits what looks like a jury-rigged grapnel to snag prop lines. They're not just smugglers. They're ready to fight. This is the fight profile the LCS leans into. High sprint to cut angles before targets make the 12-mile line. Shallow draft to work close without fear of ground. A broad flight deck to cycle Seahawks for eyes, loudhailers, and precision shots. A modular mission bay that shifts from fast boat pursuit to boarding support with the gear that matters, small UAVs, rigid hull boats, and non-kinetic tools. It's not a destroyer. It's a knife that turns quick. The legal fuse burns fast. You weigh probable cause against the risk of a shootout that drifts into another nation's waters. The window narrows as the 5 hulls edge toward a dotted line you can't cross without a call from higher. You push hails, light sirens, run warning offsets. 2 hulls tighten formation like a shield. Time to lock the case. Target validation snaps into place as sensor fusion merges radar, IR, EO, and hull marks. 5 signatures, 5 match sets. The ROE gate opens to a stair-step disable plan designed to avoid blowing volatile chemicals into a fireball. Helicopters cue laser spots on rudder quadrants and engine housings. Precision bursts walk metal, not drums. Follow-up shots rake steering lines and antenna arrays, cutting control and comms while keeping decks intact. On the nets, you hear the shift, panic, then compliance. With confirmation in hand, USS Freedom shifts from detection to denial. Seahawks spool. Crews snap on harnesses. The quiet chess game ends and the clock speeds up. Speed wins. Sensors make it clean. Disciplined ROE keeps it lawful and fast, the exact mix that cuts a $30 billion pipeline in minutes. You saw the play, wide area eyes, tight confirmation, precise disablement. The muscle mattered less than the timing. That's the lesson you carry. If you were on the net, do you lead with rotorborne standoff, ship gun disablement, or electronic coercion? Comment your choice below, and subscribe to break down the next scenario with us. For the gear-minded, unmanned systems and AI can shrink the sensor-to-shooter gap even more. The doctrine holds today, but the threat adapts. Next round moves soon.